station, waiting for that train, waiting for my train. Leave this lonesome town. Too bad you don't love me no more, child. Too bad you people.
And welcome to Musings, Rants, and Guitars on Sunday. And our special guest today is David Grissom, down in the lower right corner. Welcome aboard, David.
Welcome, David. Welcome.
David. Thank
you.
Thank you.
You have some resume, sir. I got turned on to you. I can't say it was the first time I got turned on to you, because I think we've all heard you for a long time. Maybe a lot of people didn't know. Obviously with Mellencamp, Joe Ellie. The first time I really got turned on to you was Storyville. And it just completely blew me away. I was a big reader on the Gear page. I'm sure you know of the Gear page, right?
I do. I know about the Gear page.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. They all know about you very well. And I was telling the guys, the first time I really got deep into you, there was a thread on there that said that the title of the thread was something like, if this doesn't make you emotional, it doesn't make you cry, you're dead inside. And it was, don't make me cry. And wow, the guitar playing on that, Malfred's voice. I mean, how do you compare with that? It's just amazing. And from there, I just got obsessed with your playing and stuff. So, wow, really cool, great stuff, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I might add that I discovered you by stealing a CD from somebody who said you should listen to this, and I never gave it back to him for like 25 years. And then, since I finally got around to burning it onto my Mac, I gave him back the Live at Liberty Lunch record, and and I went back. Always go back and reference that for a lot of things, which is amazing to me. You're playing on that, in 1990. I mean, you were again a fully developed artist at that point, and it's amazing to hear the sound and the variety of sound that you were getting just by using the volume half the time.
Yeah, I mean, then in those days, it was that's a 100-watt Marshall in a 412 cabinet. And
we can tell.
I like a super. I can't remember. I think I started. We did 2 nights and recorded 2 nights, but we kept. I think everything is from the second night when it was actually a super lead. But I always tried to get the super leads to sound like super basses, and I had a couple of really good cabinets, which is kind of another important thing about vintage Marshalls is to match it with the right cabinet. But
yes,
that and the PRS and a volume pedal, and I had 2 effects. I had a TC Electronics booster distortion, which I just kept on boost for solos, which really didn't. You just hit the front end of the amp harder, and then another TC Electronics chorus flanger for like the fake Leslie sound.
The secret's out. That's what that was.
Yeah, but they broke all the time. I mean, I went through like 3 of them, and they were really expensive. So I'm off that train. That's what everybody in Austin was using. Eric Johnson, he may still use them. A lot of people use them, but it could have been. Back then we were on the road. I was on the road constantly with Joe, and it was kind of like the gigs were like a workout. I mean, we didn't just stand there and play. It was like, get up close enough to touch people, and then you're walking all over pedals and stepping on pedals, and that record that venue Liberty Lunch was super cool because it was open air. It had a roof, but it was open air, and there were obviously some room mics that kind of captured the real feel of the gig, and I don't even have a copy of that record, and I don't think it's on Spotify. But every now and then I'll hear something from it and go, I remember those days.
Yeah.
We played really loud back then, and it was really fun.
You can absolutely tell you are ripping loud. You can hear, going back and listening to it with headphones even, and on the stereo, I did both just to make sure I got the feel, is you can feel the speaker response. That sound is completely captured on that. And let me add, so the follow-up to that for me was you did Love and Danger. And so I'm super excited. He's playing at Toad's Place up in Connecticut. I am the only person probably in the world disappointed to see Ian Moore. Because I was like, yes, me and the 12 people at Toad's. I don't know why that was, but Ian Moore was great, but it wasn't you.
Well, interestingly, backpedaling a notch. I love Ian. He's fantastic. He's a good.
I've seen him solo. He's fantastic.
So, back to the 100-watt Marshall thing with Ely. We joke about it's a good loud. That's sort of become a joke. Well, it really, the sound that I was getting and going for, it really was a good loud. And so when Ian came in and after me, he had a Strat and a super reverb, and Joe told me it was like, which is like, there's no way it's as loud as I was playing, but with a humbucking pickup and a 100-watt Marshall. Sometimes it was a 50, but Liberty Lunch was 100. And Joe said, man, the Ian is way louder than you. And he wasn't. There's no way he could have been, but it's the top end, the upper mids and the top end that we're getting in, the Joe's vocal range, whereas I was able to stay a little below it, I guess. But it's people often overlook amp settings, guitars, how much, the frequencies that you're accentuating. Me, I'm always running from top end. Like if I can plug in an amp in 2 seconds and know if I'm going to bond with the amp or not. And what I find is that so many modern amps are too bright for me. You can't. Right. I cannot use the treble control. I can't. So I end up choking the treble and the presence down so far that the amp no longer sounds. It can't function. And so that's, for some reason, apparently I still have the top end in my hearing, and I'm always running from riddleness and high end stuff that hurts my ears.
Wow. Yeah, cause your tones are always amazing, man.
Yes.
And that's you must hear that all the time, because you really have an ear for that,
Well, to me, it's if I don't have the right tone, I really can't play the way I want to play. Now, I can usually pick up somebody else's guitar and amp and still get something I want out of it. But like when I play through Robben Ford's rig or Eric Johnson's rig, I sound nothing like them. Not even close. I sound playing through.
I do. When I pick up Eric's guitar, I sound just like him.
It's like maybe the worst tone. The worst. You could watch Eric play through his rig and think that's the voice of the gods.
Yep.
And I could plug in my guitar to his rig, and it would be like those guys running from the bulls in Spain. Our touches are so different.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Like the delay goes through the roof, and But I work on tone. It's constant.
Yeah.
All the time I could be practicing, I'm here dinking with the order. I'm trying to put together a new pedal board, which is at my feet. And like the order of, I've got like 12 pedals, which is to me about max.
Right.
If you change the order of one pedal, or now I'm like, the third pedal on the board has a buffer in it. And I'm like A-Bing 6 pedals with buffers, and they all sound different. And
absolutely.
I don't know. But I care. I'm passionate about it.
It's amazing. I'll go back to Liberty Lunch. So I think that's where I started to really think about tone too, and what pedals were taking away from the tone. And when I turn something on, is it taking off that that piece that I really liked, even though it's adding something, but is it taking away? I mean, even like the DL4, the line 6, which is a great pedal. You turn any of it on, you can hear there's a change. There's a slight change, more so than a more transparent. Like the I think the MXR, carbon copy is a little, clearer as far as that goes. It doesn't change it as much. So it's piece by piece, like you said.
Yeah, it's in the I talk about this a lot. The phenomenon, this true bypass obsession, is it's a real mixed bag. It's buffers and true bypass are it's like a little goes a long way, and I'm more inclined now to use fewer buffers, and but I've had situations where new boards have been built. I've built new boards, or somebody's built a board for me, and I haven't had time to really check it out, and I fly to Europe, and I'm like, it feels wrong. It doesn't sound bad. It just doesn't feel right. And so, like, I got to Europe though in 2 tours ago, and I made it through the first 3 gigs, and I've got my amp and everything, and my guitar, and it's just like it just doesn't feel right. I'm wondering, is the power weird? Is it not liking 220 over in Europe?
Right. Is it 50 hertz, 60 hertz issue? Yeah.
And so I was using a Korg tuner first in line, which is a true bypass tuner.
Right.
I just went to a music store and bought a Boss TU3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Changed that out. All of a sudden, everything's back. The Boss buffer, all this made it feel great. Now there are probably better buffers than that, and I don't. Now that I'm using a couple of fuzz pedals, they don't like buffers before them. So
no, yeah, you have to use the fuzz and then the buffer, right?
Fuzz and then the buffer. But it was night and day with just that little change right there, and
yeah, huge difference.
I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, I want it to sound as good or better than plugging straight into the amp. And like with Ely and Mellencamp. With Mellencamp, I used, like in the studio, I never used a pedal ever, and no delays, no nothing. It was all
straight into the amp.
Straight into the amp. And with Ely, I don't think I had I had a piece of plywood that maybe I taped some stuff onto at one point. So often it was just sitting on the stage. But in John live, I did use the booster live with John, but that was it. And so you should be able to do it. I mean, if you dial your tone in without pedals and you bond with the guitar and an amp, it's just icing on the cake from there. Whereas if you get an amp that when you just plug into it, it's just doesn't sound good. It's not doing anything. Pedals are only going to go so far.
Right.
And that's been my experience.
Well, I guess that's part of the design work you went into with Paul Reed Smith, right, for the amp. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years of trying not to get electrocuted with chassis open everywhere, and working with Doug Tool and A-Being against all these different amplifiers. And I wanted an amp that a 30 wattish, 30 to 40 watts, it would do what the 100 watt Marshall did. I want to be able to turn the amp up. And I run that amp with the master all the way up, and then dial the volume to about. There's a really super sweet spot between 5 and 6.5, and it's all in there. But I wanted to be able to turn the amp all the way. I want the power section to be working, so it's essentially a non-master volume amp.
Right.
And
so, did you base that your idea for that amp off of a Marshall basis?
No. We combined a lot of different things, and so my initial description to Doug was, I want the bottom end of my Marshall. I want the mid-range control to function like it does on a high watt, where you can, on a high watt, if you turn down, you get turn the mids down, you get a scooped bendery thing. You turn up, and it becomes a British amp without a doubt.
Right.
It's extremely powerful. And then I wanted the sort of the mid. And then I wanted also to the mid-range of a great AC30. Maybe a little Tweed Deluxe in there, and then the top end to be sort of like a JTM 45, so that it was,
That's a lot in one amp.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
absolutely.
amp. And obviously, at 30 watts, it's not going to push back like a 100-watt amp. And what I mean is, when I hit it hard, it's not going to push back at me. It's going to compress a little more. But we try to really get the balance between the right amount of compression, and so just get a little bit of compression, which makes it easier on the audience and feels good in your hands, but not saggy. And also in the studio, I wanted it to work both places. And if it doesn't have enough compression in the studio, you're getting into twin reverb land, and it doesn't really, for the way I play, even if it's clean, I wanted to, if I hit it hard, I wanted to hear the speakers. It's like, the dampening, when you use a basket weave cabinet and you play really loud, that damping factor of that thick grill cloth sort of cools the top end off.
Yep.
I'm kind of esoteric here, but I have lots of different amps. I have vintage amps. I have tons of vintage amps. I have some other new amps that I use all the time because I'm constantly doing sessions where I have to put 5 parts on, and if you use the same amp for everything, it just gets frequency overlap. But at the end of the day, I go to a session and take 2 or 3 amps, and the producer almost always picks the PRS 30 that we worked on. Me and Doug Sewell did.
Wow. And I watched that demo that you had done on it with the small pedal board and talked back.
Yeah.
And you said exactly that. You took this piece, and this piece, and 2 years is quite a bit of time to actually get that, and then your ears have to rest between like sessions and things like that. So you gotta and not be ready to settle, right? Okay, that's good enough, right? So you guys must have spent a lot of time.
Well, in the 2 years, it was it was a lot of time spaced. It was spaced out.
Sure. Yeah.
Because Doug would come to Austin, and we would just open stuff up, and we'd change components, and I'm like, well, what if we did this, or we do it in iterations. So the first time he came down, it was like, yeah, sounds good, but now listen to this Tweed Deluxe. And the next time he came down, we'd be super close, but I want a little more tight bottom, or the top's too shrill, and we change all sorts of things out. So every time, it also gave me time to play the amp and to get a good, clear idea about what it was doing for me, what it wasn't doing, and also to A/B it to other amps and try it on some gigs. But it was more so in the studio, in my studio with a microphone on it, where you could really, the microphone doesn't lie. So 2 years is a lot of time, but it was done in such a way that we always had time to, really digest the last set of changes we made. And then each time we got together, we would work, because you're talking about ear fatigue. That's a huge thing in designing anything, pickups, guitars, especially amps when you're playing loud.
Yeah, loud.
Every single time.
Right, loud.
Yeah.
Like it is, it's always loud. It's a good loud though.
We love that.
Yeah.
Every single day that every trip Doug came down and we would make these changes, we would quit for the day and think, that's it. And every time we came back the next morning, we decided we had gone one increment too far. And so that I attribute to ear fatigue. And with fresh ears, let's just go back one notch. And
right.
it was always that way.
Wow.
Amazing. All right, so great technical stuff. Some of the people who like to be on the show also like to hear a few things. So you worked your ass off with Joe Ely, right? You were out there. It was playing and playing and playing, and if things hadn't stopped, he'd be playing right now.
Yeah, we were road dogs.
Yeah, you guys were road dogs. So from there, that's back of a van. How is it changing over to Mellencamp?
I found out that the blueberry pancakes at the Ritz-Carlton
are better. They are definitely than Waffle House.
Fucking awesome, yeah.
I can't. Yeah,
unbelievable.
I'd never been in a Ritz-Carlton. And
Let alone had their pancakes.
the rooms and have blueberry pancakes delivered with room service. So it was like, yeah, everything changed. Everything changed, literally. Logistically, I'm traveling in a private plane. Never got on a bus. Playing for
Crowds,
20,000 people instead of 500 people. Making enough money that I could go buy some guitars that I dreamt about, and working with a group of players that were really, really, really special as a unit. And making records with John, what an education that was, like learning so much in the studio. Having said all that, what I also moved away from was this the experience of every night being a different show and improvising and not feeling like I was working for someone, but working with someone. And, with Ely, it was like we played a gig and, I would be soaking wet and we would blow the door. We would just every night, and Joe was taking no prisoners, and we'd go out and hang out till 4 a.m. and get, wake up feeling like hell and loving every minute of it. With John, the shows were super intense too, but it was extremely structured. And there was only 1 or 2 times in the night where I could play something different. And in a sense, it was like theater, but the band was smoking. And, John was taking no prisoners too, man. Nobody ever sat down. There was one show in the I played with him for 3 years. We did basically one continuous tour that was over a year long. And we did one show in Europe where people didn't stand up for the whole show. But every other show, from the first note, the entire place stood up and never sat down. So it was, it was a phenomenal experience too.
Yeah, you got to play with him at the height.
Yeah.
There was some huge you did Farm Aid too there, right?
I did a Farm Aid with Joe and with him.
Yeah.
Oh.
But we were doing, we did, he was doing basketball arenas in the wintertime, and they were all sold out, sometimes 360. And then the sheds, the amphitheaters, 25 or 35,000 people. If you include the lawn, the outdoor part, it was nuts. It was like the first couple of nights, it was like, there's a lot of damn people here.
Yeah, a little intimidating, right?
Where to hide up here?
Yeah.
I can't.
This is not Antone's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one of those, oh shit, here I am, right? Wow.
And
I miss Joe.
and
Well, then after the John Mellencamp, you were tapped to play with the Allman Brothers when Dickie Betts left. Is that correct?
Well, Dickie didn't leave. Dickie just went away for a little bit. He took a 3
as he does.
He took a 3-week hiatus, and I was lucky enough to go out and join them to fill in on 12 hours notice.
Now, were you? Excuse me for not looking. Was it Warren or were you playing with Derek?
It was Warren and Alan Woody. So
Wow.
93.
So you brought the 100-watt out for that.
No, I brought out my guitar, and I played through Dickie's amps.
Andy knows that too.
I was in a music store. I'd flown in from doing some gigs with Mellencamp the day before, and I was in a music. My wife says, really important. I'm like, oh God.
Right.
Well, I didn't make, I left the socks on the bed or something, but else that didn't quite do a gig. And I said, yeah, I can do the gig. When? And she goes, well, there's a flight in 2 hours. And so I got on, I ran home, got my guitar, packed a quick bag, and midnight, I'm tired it all out. And number 2, nobody's got charts in the Allman Brothers.
Oh, that's kind of cool, huh?
Yeah.
Right. So you're in the Allman Brothers and it's saying play along. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Play a longer
again.
solo.
That's just that you're right. It's surreal.
Yeah. Dream come true, right?
It was. It
Yeah.
really was a dream come true. I mean,
Yeah.
you fantasize when, as a kid. I don't know if you guys are like this, but when I was, 14, 15, just starting to play, I would think about, well, what would it be like? I'm playing along with Elizabeth Reed or whatever to really play with the Allman Brothers. And it was, I'm standing up there the first couple of nights, or actually every single gig, and it would happen every night during dreams when we would start dreams. And I would just look over and there, I'm like, there's Greg. And it's like, and when J-Mo and Butch really, it was just like this freight train, but not like a freight train mixed with if you were a surfer and you were just on the crest of the wave. And it was, I don't know how to describe it other than, I mean, there was that and a couple other things in my life that have been, I mean, I can just quit now, feeling, not that I ever really wanted to do that, but the experience of getting back and doing the Allman Brothers for 3 weeks kind of made me realize that I really needed to do that. As much as I learned and grateful for the experience of working with John, I wanted to do something different. I got back into the whole thing that I experienced with Joe, just improvising every night and being able to have that organic music. It's not show business, it's music.
Yeah,
Right.
we come back to that conversation a lot during the show. Is the fact that we're guitar players, right?
Yeah.
And it's still, when you get to play and really play, it's magic to you. I mean, it just, you sit there and just go, and if the sound's right and you can feel it and it's coming back to you and you're hitting the right notes, it's truly a magical moment for you. You want to be, you love the audience and do everything, but you play guitar because you love it. And it just flows through you.
Absolutely true. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's the hardest thing for me about where we are now is the inability to go out and have that experience. And it's really hard to talk about without having a long dissertation on this. But for me, at this point in my life, it's not about going out and hearing people clap. It's about having an interactive experience with musicians and the audience and go someplace that I've never been musically, spiritually, frankly, because it becomes, when I'm playing with my band and playing my tunes with phenomenal, empathetic listeners, listening band members that react and really listen, it's better than anything I've ever done. And I have a residency here in town. I play every Tuesday night that I'm in Austin.
Yep.
And that 90-minute gig keeps me a sane person. And so it's been about 4.5 months without that gig. And, I feel like my guts have been ripped out not being able to have that experience. And I've been lucky to be really busy in my studio doing stuff for other people. And I love that. And I hope that doesn't stop. But, man, I think it's true for the audience here as well. And audiences are not that different other places, but I will say that in Austin, the audience is a big part of the show. They're educated and they're open-minded, and they're, at least the people that come to my gigs are up for wherever you want to go. I mean, it's not, mistakes are totally cool. And so consequently, we're all cool with hanging our toes off the edge of the cliff. And if we don't get back in one piece, that's cool, because the audience reacts to that. And I don't know, I just miss it, man. That's the hardest part about this, is not being able to have that 90 minutes of purging and a spiritual connection through music.
Yeah,
that's
well
something we all.
Full
well said, man.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
absolutely it's not just the crowd. It's that connection you make with them. Absolutely true. I completely agree with you. I'm going to say a quick shout out to you from Cliff, who's on YouTube watching us. He just wanted to say hi. Great to hear your stories. And also Gene, who has always been following us on Facebook Live. He's there, and he's chiming in about the differences in power between Europe and stuff, too. So I just want to say hi to Gene also. He's always following us. Great guy. So,
Wow. And then to follow that, I mean, the Mellencamp thing is great. Then you switched gears and went and did some Dixie Chick tours.
Well, before that, I did Storyville for 5 years.
Oh, well, we're going to leave Storyville for Joey because absolutely
That's
that.
okay.
Yeah. So we'll skip to the Dixie Chicks really quick. Okay. So that probably was a little bit of fun as well. You know, some great tunes, and you got to play a little bit, or
I got to play a little bit in you know, it was they invited me to join the band and made me the MD or the band leader, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right.
So we played Saturday Night Live. That was the first gig, and then flew to Europe for more of a promotional thing. And the very first gig was the gig where Natalie said the thing about Bush, and I'm like,
oh,
it was the very first gig, and you know, the band was made up of kind of liberal guys and then conservative guys, because it was like, I won't say who. I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say who, but I was like, guys, because I remember walking down the stairs and it said Clear Channel, and I know the Clear Channel controls all the radio in the United States.
Yep.
Or they did at the time. They don't anymore. But
right.
When she said it, it was like, you know, we were staying right off of Hyde Park, and they were having like 15,000 people a day demonstrate against starting a war. And we hadn't invaded yet. I mean, it was all, let's don't do this, you know, and so you can get caught up in that. And the comment, I don't want to get into it too deeply, but she made a very offhand comment. Opening night, you say things that you don't maybe think through. It was like, but for me, it kind of stopped me in my tracks, because I had enough experience in public relations and how politics and music can be, you know, a really powerful, you know, the 60s and the change that was, that came about because of certain music and musicians and songs.
Sure.
Right.
But it's kind of stopped me in my tracks. And after the gig, I was like, guys, this is not the last we're going to hear of this. And then the more conservative guys in the band were like, oh man, that was nothing. That was nothing. Well, as we go on, we're working our way across Europe and then down to Australia. My wife I'm talking to her on the phone, and she's like, there's some weird stuff going on over here. And then it was like, they're burning their CDs.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, we fly back to America, and we no longer are rehearsing in Los Angeles. We're taken down to Long Beach in the middle of nowhere. It looks like an abandoned air hangar. And there's guys with earpieces and German Shepherds. And for 3 years, those guys with earpieces and German Shepherds went everywhere with us.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was
to be a piece of, that's history too. I mean, you were a piece of history, you know, doing that.
I mean, that was the first real gig was when all that went down. And
that was the first show.
Yeah, except for Saturday Night Live, but that was
right. Saturday Night Live.
2 songs, but that was the first gig, and it was also the first gig. It was the revelation I had that night was the crowd was about 90% female, and the entire gig, not one person in the audience made eye contact with me. Not one person. They were there. The audience was there for the 3 women. That was it. I mean,
right. You guys could have been blacked out behind screens, right?
Yeah.
And effectively we were. You know, when we got to the arena stuff, it was different. You know, there was a lot more. You felt like you were part of the gig more. But that was right after they had done a record called Home, which was a bluegrass record. And so the real cool, one of the real, probably the best thing about that tour was learning. I thought I knew how to play bluegrass. I was born in Kentucky. And I realized after about 20 minutes of being around the legit bluegrass guys that they had hired, I didn't know anything about bluegrass, in that it was like an entirely different set of muscles and getting on top of the beat rather than rock and roll where you lay back on the backside of the beat. And so to be around those guys and to learn from them was really, wow. And I got paid for it. So that was really fun. Really fun.
That's a good point, man. Those guys are, it would be like sitting in with, Wes Montgomery, in the same thing, right? Where you're just, I thought, I can play a few chord progressions, I can play on the 2 and do that, but completely different than what we do with rock.
Yeah, I think, jazz and classical are more harmonically sophisticated, but if you want to be great at either, it's a lifetime pursuit, and you start young.
And then some.
You really have to grow up committed to those styles of music. It is, and I found that it's the same thing with bluegrass. The guys that were incredible, their parents were musicians, or they grew up playing square dances or whatever, and so the inside stuff and the intricacies and the subtle things that you don't necessarily hear if you listen to, I grew up listening to Norman Blake and Doc Watson, and I could play a bunch of those tunes. But when you were around these guys for a long period of time, you realize that it's the same thing as like Pat Metheny growing up playing jazz when he was, 15 years old in clubs with guys who were older than him. The bluegrass guys were the same way. They would play gigs. And that's really, a whole nother topic. If you want to learn how to play music, play gigs. But so it's a discipline, and you can't just expect. You can't think. It's not like, wow, I'm going to get a couple of Doc Watson records, and I'm going to learn a couple G runs and and a D28, and then everything. I'm like,
and you're all in.
And you're all in. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Absolutely. Well. At this point, I could pick your brain for all this, but I'm going to hand it over to Joey for his Storyville gushing, because you're going to gush.
Yeah, you got to tell me how this. You got. Go ahead, Len.
Okay, I want to rewind to when you first went to the Austin, Texas. What was the scene like in the beginning? Were you contemporaries with like the Vaughan brothers and Eric Johnson and those guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were there. They were there. I was there.
Everybody was hanging out. It was, it was like, it was a small town, and if you had a night off, you were at Antone's, and, if you were at the rehearsal hall, they were all there. You pass them. It was like, Austin now is nothing like it was then. It was a whole different thing. It was a completely different thing, but everybody was, it wasn't just those guys. It was the country guys and the punk guys, and everybody came to everybody's shows, and there were a lot of cross-pollination. It's like if you look at Ely, early on, the Clash was infatuated with Joe Ely, and
absolutely,
they would come down and they would hang out and jam together. When I went to England with Joe, went to Joe Strummer's flat and the pub with him, and just Mick Jones and Joe Strummer were in the front row, just like digging the shit out of it. And I was like,
right,
this is like life. Life is really amazing.
You went and had drinks with Joe Strummer, too,
at his local pub.
Wow.
He was,
all right. I don't know what to say to this guy at this point.
He and Mick Jones were in the front row at the Mean Fiddler at the Ely gig. They're like royalty in England, and nobody was bothering them or anything, and they were just standing right there in the front row, just going, digging it like everybody else. We were loud and kicking ass, and it was.
I don't know if I could do that with those two looking at me.
Yeah.
Especially now, because he's not alive. But,
That's true.
Well, you got that, yeah. So how did Storyville start up?
Well, Malford, that
was his band originally, right?
It was his band originally, and then he did a record called Bluest Eyes, which I played on a few songs, and Chris Layton and Tommy Shannon played on a few songs. And then
not a bad rhythm section you got there.
Yeah. Just couple of guys from Austin.
Yeah. And then that initial band was, after that record came out, I don't know why or what, but Chris Layton wanted to start the band, be part of the band, and he asked me if I was interested in doing it, and I'd had an offer. At the same time I had an offer to join Rod Stewart's band, and I just felt like the Storyville thing was more of a, it was, who knows, it had so much potential, but it also had, musically, it was just more of my thing. And so instead of getting back on the private jet and having blueberry pancakes at the Ritz-Carlton, me and Chris Layton drove a van back and forth across the country for 5 years. And, we never really got through to having a big hit song. We got close with one song. Yeah. But I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. And it was, David Holt was the other guitar player.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's, phenomenal.
Not too shabby.
Phenomenal guitar player. Yeah. So it was really, on paper, it was like, well, how can this miss? But I think we did a reunion in 12 years ago or something, and we were more popular then than we were when we were really.
Yeah, well, sometimes it takes people a little while to catch on,
Well, it's not like we were doing anything that groundbreaking. I think.
Yeah, but it was
great. It stood up.
Great songs.
Held up.
Yeah, good stuff.
A Good Day for the Blues is a staple at jams, right? So people do these open mic things, and there's a good band playing, and people always want to do that song. And nice job.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah. So I hope at least that in New York we're playing that too, right?
Yeah. So we're
open
playing
jams,
it too.
man. It comes up.
That comes up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really.
Yeah. But what about poor Malford, man? Just not having the luck, right? That guy. Voice.
I haven't talked to him for a while. I'm not really sure what's up with him right now, but I know he had a few health issues for a while, and at one point he'd moved to Holland, and I'm not sure where he is now. I don't really stay in too close contact with him. It's always wonderful to see him whenever I do. I stay in pretty close to, I talk to Chris once a week. But the other, David, I see occasionally, but I rarely see Tommy or Malford out and about. But no, I don't see anybody out and about right now. But
yeah,
I think we're all good friends, and it's, I get the reunion question every now and then. It's just like, no, we did that.
Right.
That we're on to other. We keep moving forward. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
They're beautiful records.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Just fantastic. As I said, it changed a lot about even my style of playing. I was always a very hard rock guy. I did love the Stevie Ray thing, but I got into that record. Your tones and the feel of everything was just really fantastic. Really changed my style. So,
cool.
You're definitely an influence. When Tommy started to get a hold of you, I was like, really? It was great.
Yeah, we're pretty happy that you could be on. So,
yeah.
I think we're eating up your time. I'd just like to get to some of the sections. We do actually have somewhat of a format other than this, and I do appreciate your time. But here's where we get to have a little fun. So normally, so today you said you were working on a reverb tank, which is fun. So usually, what we start off with is my question is: did you ever have a piece of gear that you got, a guitar or something that got away? You sold it, you hawked it, it was stolen, that you wish you had still?
Yeah, you probably won't think this as much, but I had a 59 Burst.
Yeah, we know about that.
Yeah, you know what? Can we
went
move
back
on
and forth
from
in a
this?
text.
Yeah, we have no interest in this at all.
Yeah, let's hear it.
The first year I got with Mellencamp, I was making, for me, I lived in a one-bedroom apartment, and all of a sudden I'm making
Okay, yeah.
I'm making 10 times what I was making before.
And blueberry pancakes.
And blueberry pancakes, yeah, which, anyway. Long story short, I bought a Burst, a 59 Burst, a 56 Les Paul Jr., and a factory nickel part stop tailpiece 64 or early 65 SG. All three guitars for 10 grand.
No.
Wow.
and so this is an interesting phenomenon. This is like, this is like a lot of usually I find that guitars that got away, they get better the longer they've been gone in your head. And there's no doubt this was an incredible guitar, but I took it to so many sessions, and I would take my PRS, and it was like they always chose the PRS. And then I got a 59 335. And the 335 just ate the Burst for lunch. I mean, it was like not even close in terms of, for me, the way I played and the magic and, a good 335 to me is like the best all around vintage guitar that you can own. So my wife and I we bought 5 acres of land and started to build a house outside of Austin. And, I'm not playing the Burst. And I can remember Clifford Anton at one point, was collecting a bunch of guitars, and this guy made him take 2 Burst to get all the custom color fenders he wanted. And they sat under somebody's bed for like 2 years. They were $5 grand a piece, and nobody wanted them. So anyway, I owed some money on my land, and I sold the Burst for it was $28,000 minus the commission from the dealer. Larry Wexler sold it for me in New York. And so I got, it was 5 years later, you would put another 0 on what I got.
Absolutely, you'd put another 0 on there and have people fighting over it.
Yeah.
And it was uncirculated, like not been in the and it was a fairly plain top guitar, really faded. I would love to have it back, because I think too now I know how to use it better. I would understand how to utilize it, and now I do so many more sessions that I was doing then that it would come in handy. But there's no way I'll ever get another one. There's no that.
Right.
But
yeah, that's gone. I mean,
the 335, and then I got incredible old Telly and an old Strat, and then the PRS, my signature guitar. I mean, you could sit here and A/B them with everything else, and they're kind of their own thing, but they cover. I can take one and almost do everything with it at a session, and they're really. I mean, it's for a new guitar. It's the shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did we talk about your signature guitar yet? Did I miss that when I?
Yeah, no, we didn't talk about the guitar.
No.
Oh, well, I just wanted to ask you real quick. Out of all the guitar companies that could have or wanted probably to do a signature guitar for you, how did you wind up with the Paul Reed Smith for doing your guitar? Which is beautiful, by the way.
Everybody in Austin was playing Fenders, and I wanted to have something different.
Wow.
So was I remember the gold top. I think you had another one as a backup too. One of his.
Yeah, I bought the first one I bought in '85 was Seafoam Green, and so I bought that one, and then I met Paul a year later or so, and he gave me that gold top, and the gold top became a little more the main guitar, but they were real. The Seafoam was all mahogany, so those two guitars were my bread and butter for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, distinct sound, but I mean, your playing is distinct as well, and you can hear it on anything you play on. So take that as a compliment, because we talk about
it's
it.
It's such a signature sound. Certain people you can hear instantly in the background. Oh, that's so and so. You're one of those players. I can definitely hear and know when it's you with your tone, regardless of who you're playing with, when I hear it on the radio. And that's pretty cool. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's in the age of the internet now and YouTube and Instagram, it's real easy to get caught up in what you don't do. The Instagram comparison game to me is a real slippery slope and sort of an enemy of creativity. I mean, I really try to limit my exposure to it because, I mean, there's 1,000 guys that do all these amazing things, but at the end of the day, I do my thing and I go back to that and try to remember that. And I always encourage people to sort of use guitar players they love as a springboard, but somehow, whatever it takes, combine it all into something that is your thing. And it really involves a lot of blocking out the negativity and the naysayers of what's cool and what's not cool. I mean, decide for yourself what's cool. And if you think it's cool, it's cool. I mean, so that having your own thing, I think it's more challenging now because we're overloaded with great musicians. Sometimes I find that technically it's incredible, but it leaves me a little cold. But it's super cool. The best part about it is discovering players you never would have heard otherwise. But absolutely. Again, you have to, I would somehow, a combination of growing up in a town that didn't have a ton of music and you really had to seek out all these, I got into all these different styles early. And then Joe Ely encouraged me to do my thing. Like, he never said don't, he said do. And more, he used words like more, and in his own way taught me about dynamics and everything, and performing live and how to respond to certain situations. But that being around someone like him, a real artist, and then sort of lucking into this combination of PRS and vintage Marshalls, that's when I really took all these influences that I, had in high school and after that, and then they just kind of all gelled together at that point.
Right. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. We're going to go to one of our other segments real quick. A lot of times we go around the room and ask, but I know we want to get you off. We don't want to keep you wasting your time. Did you have at any of your gigs, how about a Spinal Tap moment where something happened that's so funny or such disastrous? You got something for us?
I got a pretty good one.
Okay.
Cool.
We were playing Mellencamp. We were playing Jones Beach. I know you guys.
I was at the show.
We know it very well.
We did two nights in a row, and I think maybe the second night it rained, and we did 2 sets with John. There was no opening act, and so we'd come out and play an hour and 10 minutes, and then come back and do another hour, or vice versa. I don't remember exactly, but we had like a rain delay the second night, and I remember those gigs. Mick Ronson was hanging out with us for about a week. I remember.
Let's toss some names around.
Yeah. Nice.
I've got a story I could tell about that, but we don't have enough time. I mean,
we have time. Whatever you want
we
to
have
tell
all the time in the world.
Anyway, so the rain delay, and we were all wireless, and your pack was in your back pocket, and then you just plug into the guitar.
Yeah.
And so I was like changing guitars every song, different tunings, capos, open tunings, tones. And it was like the hardest part about the gig was remembering when I had to run over, and because sometimes like a chord would be ringing and I'd have to change to a different guitar. But with the second set started out with Small Town, down, 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 down. And, me and Mike Wanchik, the other guitar player, just like, hit the front of the stage with that riff. And we had been, because it was raining, we were all just in, the tour had been going on for a while. It was not real, like, you know, the anxiety level was pretty low at that point. And we were all just hanging around. I think we were shooting the shit with Nick and the promoter and all these people. And they go, oh, yeah, it's time to go. And so, okay. All right. So I go. And I walk up to my guitar tech, put the guitar on. Kenny counts the song off. We run up to the front. I hit the first chord, nothing. And immediately I remembered I left my battery pack in the dressing room. I took off running, and everybody's looking at me like, where's he going? And my battery pack's sitting right there on the chair and the sofa in our dressing room. I come back out, and I make it to the, you know, by the time the first verse starts, and John just looked at me, and it could have been, you're fired. It could have been, you know, and he just laughed at me. And that was... If had it been Madison Square Garden or something like that, it might have made me a little more nervous. But you know, at the rain in Jones Beach, it was okay.
Wow, that's a good one. I like that.
Wow,
that's good.
I was ready for you to have run out, slipped, and fell into the drink in front.
Hi, look who shows up.
Hey,
Andy.
Am I interrupting?
No, not
David,
at all.
David, how are you, man?
Hi, Andy. How are you?
I'm great.
Hey, Andy.
Tom's a good buddy of mine. He lives around the block, and so he told me it was okay.
It's okay, but I got to leave here in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get all my questions in 5 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
and you can take over the show in a minute. We'll just tell everybody you're David.
I'm not running this show.
No, it's great to see you, David. And I hope everything's going great, and you know, lots of love to you as usual. But you know, one thing I was thinking about was, and I was watching a video of you from 2018 today at the Saxon playing a telly, and you know the tradition of you bringing in a nod to pedal steel type stuff and something that's a part of your style. Is something that, you know, is so often associated with the Telecaster and guys that play tellies. And so I was just wondering how you felt about Telecasters.
Well, it'll, you know, when the earth is barren and the end of days has been reached, there will be cockroaches and Telecasters.
And Keith Richards.
And Keith Richards to play them.
Now, are the
cockroaches?
Are the cockroaches going to be able to play like Phil Baugh? Or I hope not.
I doubt it, but no, tellies are, you know, I mean, it's like the perfect Leo's. I don't know. I'm much more of a telly guy than a Strat guy, and you know, the early Roy Buchanan, Albert Collins, James Burton, all those guys, Wayne Moss, all that, you know, Reggie Young, Steve Cropper, you name it, that whole thing, the whole PRS through the Marshall was really kind of my telly on steroids approach to
right.
Told you that, Andy.
He did say that. Do you have an old telly though? For some reason I thought you did.
I do.
Yeah. Is it like a 52 Blackguard or something?
I have two 52 Blackguards.
Wow.
So then you answer the question twice. And what is your red Strat? What year is your Strat?
It's a 60.
It's a 60.
I paid $400 for that guitar.
Cool.
And the tellies were considerably cheaper than they are today. One of them was like kind of like the Strat almost, but
Yeah.
they're good. I've had a bunch of them over the years. When I first moved to Austin, you could get a Blackguard for about $1,000. And boy, did I let some good ones go. But
Right.
you know, back then that was 3 months rent, 4 months rent.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we
I mean,
talked about
5 months rent. I think I paid $185 from my apartment when I got to Austin a month. You know.
Right. Did you buy the Strat in Kentucky, or did you buy it in Austin?
I was living in Bloomington, Indiana.
Indiana, right.
And it came from a guy in Memphis. We had toured through there. I was in a band that toured the Midwest and Mid-South, and I saw the guitar in Memphis and he wanted 375. I didn't have 375. And finally, about 3 months later, I had 375, and I called him. I said, kind of like to buy that guitar. And so he said, it's now 400. So I got $400 together. And, you know, back in 1980, you think about shipping guitars and, you know, it's a miracle it got to me in one piece.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even today.
Oh, no, it'd be much harder today about the mail service. They're having some trouble.
I've heard that.
I haven't heard that.
Well, you know, Andy, you joined just in time for the FU part of the show. Which we...
Oh, I guess my timing is impeccable. Then.
Yeah, it is. It is. So the FU part of the show is where we're giving out a fuck you to somebody that you really admire, you know, another artist that, you know, that you admire so much, you say, fuck you, you're playing that good. I don't want to even, you know, don't want to hear it anymore, you're playing so good. I'll go for an example. My usual, and I was happy to see on your playlist you have him, David, is the guy I do with this a lot too is Richie Kotzen. You know, the guy sings, he plays guitar really well, and you know, what else can I say about him? What else can I say?
He's really cute.
Who do you got for a fuck you? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andy.
Oh, well, you know, I thought when we did this before, you know,
Yeah.
I know it's meant with love. It's like
Yes,
a fuck you with
absolutely.
love. Although,
We had one that wasn't love once.
you know, I can't, just personally, it's a bridge too far to really be like a fuck you. It's more like I love you.
Yes, exactly.
So, you know, I may have said this last time, but, you know, when I was 16, I saw Mahavishnu Orchestra in 1972 at Carnegie Hall. And it's a good opportunity to ask you, Dave. Did you get to see the original Mahavishnu Orchestra back in those days? You know,
I did.
Yeah, where did you see them? In what year? Like, do you know what tour it was?
No, it was probably not the original band. It was 77.
What? It wasn't the Jeff Beck Blow by Blow tour, was it?
No. Well, the first time I saw Jeff Beck, he had Jan Hammer, the Jan Hammer group, I think, opened up.
Yeah, so that's like I know that's like 77. You're right. That's exactly when that is, because that's when they made that record, Jan Hammer Group Live with Jeff Beck. Yeah. So anyway, that's what it would be for me, because, you know, I was 16 and my Intermounting Flame had been out for like 3 weeks, and, you know, I hadn't heard the record. I didn't know anything. I never heard anything. And somebody said to me, all I knew is they said, this guy, John McLaughlin, he plays faster than Alvin Lee. And I was like, wow, that must be fast. And, but, you know, it was like a DNA altering experience. I don't think I breathed for like a week. And I just kept envisioning like going home and taking my guitar and putting it in the garbage. I was like,
I get that a lot. I feel that a lot.
That's
I think
what
after watching
about.
David a few times, I've felt like that.
Yeah.
But I got home, I bought the album and I put on Vital Transformation on 16 on the turntable, and it sounded like boom, and I went, oh, I could play that. So anyway,
there you go. There we go.
Cool.
So David, do you have somebody that we all have somebody that we look up to so much that was almost frustrating because you thought they played so well?
Well, I hear guitar players every single day that it's frustrating because I know I could never play like that. I really do. I don't have it in me to say I mean, it's like I'm like Andy. It's just, that's almost a bridge too far for me. I don't
get it.
think. I mean, I might. The younger me may have gone there, but now it's more. Thank you for your gift, and I admire what you're doing. What I find is that there's this line now, because you see so many different players, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, of guitar players that, you know, if you just watch 2 minutes of, it's so intimidating and mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But it can also be like a bowl of sugar. You know, the first teaspoon is really pretty sweet, but if you have to eat the whole bowl, you don't really feel so good at the end of the bowl. You know, I mean, so there's like, there's the guys that technically, you know, are constantly building off of someone else they heard, and it goes to another level. And I'm just more interested in songs and like stuff that, you know, if you want to talk about technique with soul, the sort of pushing the envelope of that would, you know, like a Derek Trucks or Pat Metheny, or, you know, I hate to go back to in time, but, you know, Joni Mitchell. I mean, when you've got the complete package of incredible singing, innovative guitar playing, you know, just top level lyrics, you know, and there are a few people out there that are sort of doing that now. You know, Joey Landreth and Ariel Posen both are great writers and singers and players. I respond to that on a deeper level than, you know, the fast, weird, odd time signature, crazy tone, 40,000 effects. I try to learn from all those people and appreciate what everyone has to offer, but I don't really, this just goes back to, man, I'm just trying to become, you know, getting comfortable in your own skin. And I just constantly remind myself I do what I do. And it's like, I'm grateful for what everybody else does too. And it's,
yeah, well, variety is the spice of life. You know, everybody's got their own thing, you know.
Can I throw something in here just because I got to, you know, one of my favorite things about you, David, I mean, you and I talked about it, is that you know, you got to take a lesson with Jimmy Rainey, which is just, you know, completely mind-blowing. And so I did an interview with Jim Hall once. I went to his apartment and hung out with him, and he was the coolest guy, and, you know, I love his records, are all incredible, and so we were talking about kind of what we're talking about right now, and he was talking about, you know, what you were saying, like he listened to, like he'd say, I'll hear a guitar player and I'll be so enamored with it, I'll spend a week trying to play like that guy. This was Jim Hall when he was like, you know, like he'd already been making records for 35, 40 years at that point. And he goes, I'll spend a week trying to play like that guy, and then I'll realize that it's just silly. I should just go back to what I do.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was a fun ride, and it was inspiring. So it's all good. But, it's enticing when you hear it. You know, you get sucked in. But, you know, ultimately you do have to be you. That's going to be better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool to maybe grab a concept or an idea and then turn it off. And then go back and, you know, I just don't want to lose focus on what's worked for me in the past in terms of finding new little side streets to go down, and whether they're technical or harmonic or writing or lyrical or instrumental songs or whatever, these sort of unwritten techniques or avenues that have allowed me to sort of write some songs that, you know, I'm not totally embarrassed about, and come up with some techniques that sort of, I think, you know, help me have a bit of an identifiable sound.
Well, the creative process, I mean, just listening to what you're saying, you know, to me, is about discovery. It's not about recreating something that somebody else did, you know, like trying to be open to hearing something new that you didn't hear before. So that's going to give you the biggest payback and mean the most to you, is actually even if it's on a gig and like you hit the guitar in a weird way and the sound comes out that you didn't expect, you know, that's as exciting and that's more real. You know what I mean? Like that's really what music is. It's not, oh, somebody did something else at some point. You know, it's about, you know, so, you know, there's that excitement or feeling that you get when you know, feel like your creativity is being, you know, nurtured and all that stuff, you know, however that happens.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, David, I know you've got to go, and we appreciate every second you spent with us. It was a great conversation. You're talking to people who have a huge respect for your playing, you know, and Andy. And so, you know, so thank you.
I want to be at the top.
Thank you so much, David.
Absolutely.
Your time for this, you know, it means a lot to us, and we appreciate it. And